Hello friends, my name is Vineet Arora and you are watching Azure Devops series. So in this session, we are going to do discussion on the uh, very important topic, that is Azure Devops interview questions. So what we will do, we will go through the number of questions which are generally asked in interview, and interview expect that you will be able to give those answers, right? So let me start, and before starting let me just request you to subscribe my channel, and if you will like this video, please like. Okay, so let me tell you that what exactly is the expectation from you is that you will be able to give the answers of questions in practical approach. Hmm. He is not expecting from you to give the answers in theoretical way. My mean to say is, if you basically in the Google itself, you can get a number of questions of Azure DevOps. That what is Azure DevOps, what is CI/CD pipelines, and how developers and operation are synced. These are theoretical questions, but interview will ask you the practical questions. He will go through your resume and he will try to approach the work that you have done in Azure DevOps. Hmm? He will look the skills that he is in need of. So he will try to pinpoint the project that you have mentioned in your resume. Okay, so be ready with the questions with respect to your project. So the first question that is generally asked, that is with respect to that, what exactly you have done in your current project. Here you should be aware that what exact work you have done. What exact work in the sense means in terminology of Azure DevOps. Have you created any pipeline? Okay. Uh, if yes, how many pipelines you have created? Build pipeline, release pipeline. What exactly your project? He may also ask these questions to check your knowledge about the project. So you need to be ready for the business logic, or with some approach, that what is the domain of your project, right? And how you are approaching this, how many services are there. You should be ready with those questions, and you should have this understanding. So he is trying to know that he have you really worked on the project, or you have just written in your resume that I have worked on this. How many pipelines you have created, right? So similar question interchangeably. He may ask this question as well, how many pipelines you have created. So you should be ready with this answer. Uh, Ready in the sense, if you have really worked, then you will be able to give the answers. But if not, then you should understand that generally how many pipelines we create. Hmm. How many pipelines read? Nowadays we have different front end and different back end. Front end we generally create in the Angular single base applications, and the back end we create in the .NET or Java or Python. Basically, these are the APIs that we create. Hmm. So you will approach like, we have two major services, or we have the two main component. One is a front end, one is a back end. Front end we have created in Angular, and back end we have created in .NET or Java. So we have the two different pipelines for those. Okay, and if you really know, then you need to give the answers about the environments as well. But if you can, it's up to you how you want to approach. Hmm. So okay, next question: how many environments you have in your project? If you will stop at that point, okay, we have two pipelines in our project. One is for this project, and one is for this component, and one is for this component, and you are just stop there. Or you may also extend that answer like, okay, we have generally four pipeline: two build pipeline and two release pipeline. The release pipeline are triggered with build pipeline. So one build pipeline for front end, one for the back end. Hmm. And further we have created the environments. So now these questions are interchangeably which are generally asked. How many environments you have in your project? You can't say we have just only one environment. We have just directly production environment. You can't say this. So minimum three environments are required: development environment, QA environment, and production environment. Development environment is that environment where developer will deploy their code. They will check it. They will test it. Okay, have I done the correct work? Hmm. Or we have the multiple modules and they are integrated appropriately. Second is QA environment. Once developer will uh, say, okay, now we are good. Let's proceed with the QA environment. Hmm. So what do we do? We deploy the code that we have in the development. We deploy in the QA. Hmm. But generally, there is a different approach. Uh, that is a branching strategy that comes into picture here. And so the specific, be specific with the questions that has been asked. The question is how many environments you have. You will say development environment, QA environment, and production environment. You may also say we have the UAT environment before, after the QA and before the production. It's up to your project, but minimum three is expecting from you. Okay. While deployment, how exactly you have maintained the approval process? Here we are talking about the CD process. Hmm. So there are two processes, CI and CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. When we are talking about the continuous deployment, we should know what exactly is asking. He is asking about the approval process. Now, approval process comes in which environment? Hmm? You can't say, okay, for which environment you are asking, dev environment or QA environment and production environment. This process, this approval process comes into the picture of production environment itself. Okay, so you will say what we have done in the production environment or for the in the pipeline of production deployment, we have done the approval process there. We have created these stages, and between these stages, we have maintained a approval there. And for that perspective, what we have done there, we have added two users who are in Azure DevOps itself, and their approval is required. Okay, if you will give this answer, interviewer will know, okay, you know the concept, and even if and you will be able to do this work by yourself. Hmm. He is looking to have confidence in you. How much confident you are that the work that you have done, and these are the basic things uh, which every interviewer will expect from you. And I'm talking about the specific to the uh, Azure DevOps, but these are general questions which can be asked in any DevOps process itself. Okay, it is uh, not specific to this question is not specific to Azure DevOps. Do you know Azure board or have you worked on Azure board? So this is the general question which is asked about the DevOps person, because he's expecting from you that you he will understand that you have worked upon the CI/CD part, but he want to understand from you about the uh, process that you are following. So this is he will not directly ask. He may ask as well, but he will try to ask the question in a different way. Do you know Azure board? Have you worked on Azure board? So what exactly this Azure board, you should be aware of this. If you have not worked upon, says directly, boss, we are in the migration process as of now. What we are done, we are moving one by one. We are just creating the CI/CD pipelines, and we are in process to Azure DevOps. So you can say, yes, I know Azure DevOps, and but I have not worked upon Azure DevOps. Hmm. Because if you will say, have you worked upon Azure DevOps, Azure board, so he will try to get slightly in deep. Hmm. If you know this, that's better. You can simply confidently say that yes, I have worked upon and we are following this Azure DevOps. We are creating the sprint plan. Their sprint planning is getting managed from there. Okay, so I have created a separate video for it. You can watch that video. Okay, so there I have specifically uh, telling that how exactly we can do the sprint planning, how we can manage the work. Okay, please, I will request you to please watch that video if you have not, if you don't know about the Azure board. So you should have at least the basic understanding, and you should be in situation to give the answers. This is specific to check your knowledge that if you have worked upon Azure DevOps, so this should be in your mind. You should be in touch with this particular thing. Okay, let's move to next question. How is your team managing the assigned work? Same question, interchangeably asked. Here we are talking about the Azure board itself. So you will say that we have created the sprint planning. We have these sprints, right? On each sprint we assign the task, okay, and there from there we are managing it. This question is asked in practical approach, that if you have really worked upon, or you have just stated that I have worked upon in Azure DevOps, because industries are following this pattern. This is not specific to Azure DevOps. You can say, or Azure board. You can say that, boss, we are using the Jira board itself, from where we are managing it. But and in terminology, we are in process to movement from the Jira to Azure DevOps, if required. Extric. Okay, this is not mandatory that you should. Thing is, you should be aware of how we are doing work in industry. What is the way to analyze the static code? The next question. Again, practical question. Hmm. He is trying to understand that you know this concept, analyzing the code, static code, and where this will come into picture. So let me tell you, this is about the static code analysis, and here is he specific looking to have one keyword from you, that is Sonar Cube. Okay, and he is looking to have answers that how you have implemented. So you will say that, boss, we have build pipeline and we have release pipeline. So static code analysis come into the area of build pipeline. What we do, once we get the code from the Git, okay, from the Git repository, and we get that code, and we need to analyze the code. Code analysis is done in many ways. So this generally, we can say, this is, here we are looking for the vulnerability test itself. So what we have done, I'm giving you the answer. If you don't know, you can say that this terminology, that we have just I know how to do it, but as of now we are not doing it, and we are in the process to do it. Okay, so you can do some R&D about it. I am giving just a hint to you, so you can do some R&D about it. What is Sonar Cube and how we implement it? So giving you some slight information to you here. So what you need to do, you can say that we have set up a server, and there we have set up their Sonar Cube. Okay, and now what we have done, we have maintained a connection, service connection from our Azure DevOps to uh, Sonar Cube, and in this way we need to do some configurations, and we can do in this way. So if you will give this type of answer, interview will get, uh, he will try to understand you that yes, you have the knowledge and you will be able to do the task. Okay. Next question is Sonar Cube, interchangeably asked. Okay. Okay. Let's move to next question. What is a process to deploy a .NET Core application in Azure DevOps? Here in this question, interviewer is expecting from you, he is trying to check your knowledge in practical approach. Okay, you don't need to give thoroughly, but you need to give answer that what exactly you have done, what is the approach that you have followed. He will say, we have a .NET Core application, I want to deploy it to the Azure App Service. What is the process? How you will do it? So you will say that, boss, that .NET Core application code or Java code itself, that will be in Git repository. As a Azure DevOps, as a DevOps person, I should know that how exactly that application will be built. Because I am looking to have some DLLs that we call as artifact. So what we will do, uh, we will have the Git repository. So what we will do in the in the first of all, we need to have CI process, continuous integration process. Here we will get the code from Git, and once we will have the code, we will build it. Once we will build it, we will produce the artifacts. And once we will get the artifact, we will create one more release pipeline that we call as CI/CD process, continuous deployment, and we can have trigger there that once we will have the artifact ready, we will trigger this process, the CD process, okay, continuous deployment, the release pipeline. In the release pipeline, what we will do, we will get those artifact, right, on which behalf of which this particular pipeline has been triggered, and we will download those artifact and we will deploy it to the Azure App Service. This is not specific to Azure App Service. You whatever the questions in this way, you here you can uh, give this terminology, so he will understand. Yes, so you know the concepts. Hmm. So what you will do, you will create the stages there. We can have the dev stage, we can have the QA and production. Okay, so inside the dev, we will for that we will filter our artifact that is this particular build has been created from the development branch. If yes, we will deploy it to dev. Otherwise, we will deploy it. If it is from the master, we will deploy it to the QA. And once we have the QA, we will do, we will move the same artifact from QA to production or QA to UAT, because this has been tested, this particular build has been tested, and we are moving the same artifact to the production itself. We are not going to build it again. So you should be aware of this concept. If you will say this thing, he will get confidence, interviewer will get confidence in you, and he will try to ask questions, other questions to you. What is the process to deploy Angular application? Again, .NET Core application, Angular process is same. You should be aware that about the building part, how a Angular application we build and how a .NET Core application we build. It's good to have to go through this two application itself and try to do it by yourself as a practical approach. Hmm. Okay, let's move to next. What is service connection? How we do create that? Here we are talking about the connections between the two services. Two services means one service is itself Azure DevOps and another is where you are looking to have connection. Connection in the sense, for example, as earlier I was just updating you about the deployment process. So what you will do, you have the artifacts and you need to deploy to the Azure App Service. But how you are going to make a connection from Azure DevOps to Azure portal? Azure App Service. And for that we are need to have a service connection. So you will say that boss, it service connection depends upon with for which resource or for which third party application we are going to make it. Hmm? So if for example you will say I have created a service connection for my uh, DevOps process for my deployment of Angular application inside the Azure App Service or .NET Core application to Azure App Service. And there what we have done, we have registered some applications, registered an application into the Azure Active Directory. And there once we will register the application, we will get the client ID, we will get tenant ID, and we will get secret. Client secret, and these value we need to configure in Azure DevOps while creating the service connection. Okay, this is a process. And if you are looking to have really to in to know the answer exactly, I have already created a video, please watch that. I have maintained that, I have updated that what is the exact process. Okay, like we have the two ways, we can do it manually, we can do it automatic. So I'm requesting, please watch that video and you will get better understanding. Okay, next question. What is the difference between service connection and service principal? Hmm. Service connection, a connection between Azure DevOps and third party, that may be Azure DevOps, that may be Azure DevOps to Azure portal, that may be Azure DevOps to GitHub, okay, and that may be Azure DevOps to any third party like Docker Hub, okay. So we are looking to have that connection. And service principal, we are talking about the application registration into the Azure Active Directory. Next question. Are you aware with Azure resources, for example, app service and function apps? Okay, so interchangeably question, and interviewer is trying to check your knowledge, because if you are doing the deployment, where exactly you will do the deployment? Hmm. In .NET Core applications, you will deploy it to the app services. If you have created function apps, or you are the function apps are generally created in, so you should be aware of this. You, if you don't know the function apps, you can say that, boss, we are doing the deployment the app services, and I know the function apps. If you know, or you can simply say, no, I don't know the function apps. There is no harm in saying that I don't know the function apps, but you can say that both this is about the deployment. I have done the deployment the app service, and I can, in a similar way we can do it in function apps. Okay, but if you know, just explain him. If you don't know, try to uh, get the confidence, right? You need to get the confidence from the interview. You can say, this is, I can learn, and no issue, and I'll be able to, because I have the experience in doing the deployment in app services and Angular applications and .NET Core, and I'll be able to do it, not a issue. But yes, this is one of the resource from the Azure, and similar to the app service. Okay, next question. What is IAC? Infrastructure as a code. Here, interviewer is looking to check your knowledge about the Terraform, ARM, and Bicep. Hmm. As a DevOps person, you should be aware of this concept about making the resource onto the cloud. Okay, and this question may be asked depending upon the requirement, what exactly interviewer is looking to have. So before taking the interview, you may go through the GD, and you can try to know that, is interviewer specifically asking, is this the mandatory skill? Hmm. So if this is the mandatory skill, he is definitely going to ask this. This skill can be good to have or must have. If it is good to have and you don't know, please go through the concept of Terraform, AR, and biceps. So try to get the understanding. Hmm. Why we are looking to these things nowadays? What is the benefit of it? So you should aware of this thing. And if you had not worked, just tell them that, boss, I know what is IAC. This is infrastructure as a code, and this is used to deploy the resources in cloud environment. And there are different ways. One is the Terraform, ARM, and Biceps. ARM and Biceps are specific to the Azure, and Terraform is not specific to Azure. It is for other cloud as well. For example, for AWS, as well as for the as well as for the Azure. Okay, ARM and biceps are specifically for the Azure, and you may try to give the answers in that way. If you will read it and will understand it, so accordingly you need to give the answer. You can say that, boss, if required, I can do it. I have done some POCs, and I know the concept, and I will be able to do this task. So interviewer is looking that confidence from you. But but the thing is, he is looking to have basic concepts from you, basic concepts about the Azure DevOps. He is looking to have these questions that I have just updated to you. Okay, so you should be aware of these questions. So be confident, be prepared. Okay, watch through. Please watch. Please go through my existing videos. That will give confidence to you, and you will be able to crack that interview. So, in the last, I would like to say best of luck to you, and thank you. Let's meet in another video in our another session. Bye for now.